So when I started Bytes, I wanted to share some clinical tips. And one of the tips is the stamp technique. It might be useful in those cases where you have good occlusal anatomy, that you may have caries, you need to remove the tooth structure, but you want to copy the actual shape of the existing anatomy. So let's have a look at the stamp technique. So we begin by placing glycerine jelly over the tooth structure, and we paint this over the tooth. If you need to, you can air thin as well. But that glycerine jelly will be like a separating medium, and we can then place our flowable resin, which is able to actually replicate that anatomy. We can then place a handle into that unset flowable. We obviously cure that flowable, we'll set that, and it becomes like a handle for your stamp. You can see how this fits on very snugly. We carry out our cavity preparation. So we go through our typical bonding procedures, our adhesive procedures. In my practice, I like to place a very thin layer of flowable resin right at the base of the cavity. I know that first layer adapts very well, very intimately and seamlessly. I try and bond it only onto the base, not actually engaging any of the other walls. We can see the adaptation of the first layer of composite, an incremental layer that's cured in roughly about 2 millimeters thickness. Our next layer is our next increment. We can actually start to adapt the resin onto the cavity form. We then can use our stamp by placing the Teflon tape over the tooth and then using it like a stamp. We can push into the cavity form, and you can see how that adapts the resin. I ensure that I've cured correctly and polymerized the composite resin, varying from different directions, and then we remove the stamp, and you can see the anatomy that's been replicated. There will be some excess, so the tip is to not use too much composite when you first apply. And you can see then we use our finishing burrs. These are carbide finishing burrs, which don't remove enamel and tooth structure. It's just removing resin. So you can see how we've got some beautiful anatomy that's been replicated with this. And if you want to, then you can use some different tints to improve the aesthetics of the final restoration. Be careful with the use of tints, don't use too much. Less is always more in these sorts of cases. And you'll see how we just apply it to the different grooves and we just flick out any excess, and we just have a very, very subtle tinting of the fissure patterns just to improve our final aesthetics of the restoration. And there we have the stamp technique.